In Florence, the architect Giulio Marengo is captivated by the sight of a young girl whose hair covers her entire body. Intrigued, he calls out to her and she lifts her head, revealing a remarkably beautiful face. Momentarily disoriented by the unexpected encounter, Giulio gathers himself and inquires about the whereabouts of the gardener. The girl informs him that the gardener can be found on the other side of the garden. Giulio follows her directions and meets the gardener, expressing admiration for the meticulous work done in maintaining the garden. He acknowledges the gardener's efforts in preserving the natural landscape within the garden, appreciating the dedication evident in the overall design. Impressed by a particular statue in the garden, Giulio expresses his desire to purchase it for his client. However, the gardener firmly informs him that none of the garden's elements are available for sale. As they discuss, the girl walks by, bidding farewell to the gardener, aware of the late whore and the potential difficulty for the girl to catch a bus. Giulio offers to give her a ride down to the house. Despite his suggestion, the girl, Francesca, declines, claiming she has no patience left after concluding his conversation with the gardener. Giulio heads to his car and drives towards the girl. Although he has yet to learn her name, Giulio recognizes her as Francesca, intrigued by how he identified her. Despite her using a book to cover her eyes, Giulio insists he can always recognize her. He invites Francesca to join him in the car, offering her a ride as they drive away. Giulio notices Francesca and engrossed in a botany textbook, prompting him to initiate a conversation about botany. Curious about her thoughts on cypresses, he inquires, but Francesca admits she doesn't ponder much about them, except for the disheartening fact that they are dying. Giulio then shifts the conversation to Tusi, and Francesca reveals that she has figured out the answer to a question posed by her friend. Intrigued, Giulio asks about the question, and Francesca discloses that it pertained to what attracts her to a man. She now firmly believes that the hand is the most captivating. According to her, hands convey diverse feelings and emotions when they reach out to touch someone, and she confesses that at that moment, his hands seemed to express a desire to touch her, unfazed. By Francesca's suggestion, Giulio continues the conversation and informs her that he needs to check something in the garden. Stopping the car, he steps out, prompting Francesca to express a desire for him to touch her at least once. So she takes his hands and licks them, then rubs them on her. Amused, Giulio denies any fear and proceeds to the garden, while he is engrossed in a conversation with the gardener's worker. He notices Francesca departing on a bike, returning to his car. He finds a letter on his seat with her phone number. Once home, Giulio decides to give her a call, identifying himself as the man with the distinctive hands. To his surprise, Francesca's earlier words prove true, marking the beginning of an intriguing connection between them. That night, he is seen at her apartment and they have intimate moments. He watches her sleep after speaking with Cecilia. Giulio discovers Francesca's name before leaving her house the following day. He reunites with an old friend who is also an agriculturist. Nostalgic memories resurface as they sit in a bar, catching up on old times. While at the bar, Francesca and her friends arrive, and she walks past Giulio. Intrigued, Giulio stands up to approach her, but she heads to a phone booth, where she begins to behave seductively. Giulio can't help but watch her, and his friend notices his familiarity with her. When asked how he knows Francesca, Giulio reveals they met the previous night, so his friend asks him if he remembers Fossa, one of their friends. While younger, they walk in and they walk with Fossa and another lady, Teresa. He remembers Fossa and asks about Teresa too. Shocked by the revelation, Giulio's friend informs him that Teresa, whom Giulio inquired about, no longer retains her youthful appearance, adding to the surprising news. Giulio's friend remarks that Francesca doesn't resemble Fossa. Bewildered, Giulio seeks clarification on this statement. His friend drops the bombshell. Francesca is Fossa's daughter, and Fossa has passed away approximately 5 years ago. As a young boy, Fossa and Giulio had a romantic relationship before Fossa left with a contractor to Africa, where Francesca was born. However, Giulio insists that he cannot be Francesca's father, asserting that Fosco left him for another man. However, his friend discloses that, in return, he later divorced the man and lived alone with their child, Francesca. This unexpected revelation leaves Giulio grappling with the complexity of his connection to Francesca and the possibility of being her father. Giulio's friend suggests that the information may just be a rumor, but he learned about it from Teresa. Known for spreading such news, Giulio decides to confront Teresa, who maintains her suspicion about Francesca's parentage. She reveals that Francesca was born precisely a year after Giulio's relationship with Fossa ended, before Fossa left. Teresa asked her if Julio was the father, and Fosa only responded with a smile, despite the uncertainty surrounding Francesca's paternity. Julio continues with his work, delivering the completed garden to its owner. Francesca, filled with exuberance, dances around the garden when the owner notices her. She inquires if Francesca is Julio's daughter, introducing an additional layer of complexity and intrigue by Julio's relationship, observing Francesca and Julio together. The woman notices their resemblance and gestures that they look alike. Intrigue, and perhaps spurred by this recognition, Julio decides to deepen his relationship with Francesca. He takes both Francesca and her friend out for dinner. Throughout the evening, Francesca subtly attempts to seduce him with her expressions. However, Francesca eventually signals her friend to leave the dinner, leaving her alone with Julio, confused by his avoidance. Francesca questions him about it. Julio, feeling the need to be honest, reveals that he is married with children. Francesca insists that she's not seeking someone to take care of her after the dinner. Julio drops her off at home, but the lingering question of potential paternity continues to weigh heavily on his mind. Returning to Rome late at night, Julio finds his daughter, Aria, missing. Concerned, he questions his wife about Aya's whereabouts in the late return. His wife dismisses his worries, stating that Aria, being 18, is old enough to make her own decisions when Aria finally arrives. She asserts her independence, urging her father to stop treating her like a child. Disturbed by thoughts of Francesca, Julio seeks solace in talking to Cecilia the next day. He picks her up from school and they engage in conversation and play. Cecilia discloses that Francesca doesn't know who her father is later as they play. Francesca arrives and locks herself in a room, visibly upset. Julio confides in a friend about the affair and reveals that his daughter Ilaria is pregnant and contemplating abortion. Returning to Francesca's room, he discovers her with a guy and insists that she send him away before going home. The following day, Julio has a conversation with Aria, who reveals her plans to have an abortion in London when Aya's baby's father calls Julio. Attempts to speak with him, but Aria refuses the family dynamics. With Aria about her pregnancy, she claims it's not Julio's fault, stating that she initiated the sexual encounter, frustrated and angry. Julio vents his emotions during this conversation. Francesca calls and Aria picks up, handing the phone to Julio. He speaks to Francesca as if she were a random girl, attempting to maintain a sense of detachment. Aria catches on and asks him if Francesca is attractive shortly afterward. Francesca arrives at Julio's house and his wife answers the door. Francesca approaches Julio, informing him about a horse race they plan to attend together after the race. They share a meal with her adoptive father, Ballo. As they stroll, Julio broaches the topic of Francesca's true parentage, asking if she has any interest in knowing her biological father. However, Francesca expresses disinterest, stating that it wouldn't change anything for her. She asserts that even if he were to appear, she would merely greet him and leave later. Julio drives Francesca home, but finding her house filled with people, they opt to go to a hotel instead. Francesca undresses promptly, waiting for Julio on the bed. However, Julio remains in the bathroom until she falls, sleep navigating the complexities of his relationships and the emotional turmoil within his family. As Francesca sleeps, Julio quietly leaves the hotel and she tearfully watches him go. Julio, feeling the weight of the situation, contacts his friend again, learning about a notary where Fosa supposedly left a letter for Francesca's father. Upon reaching the notary, Julio discovers that Fosa retrieved the letter. A few years later, Fosa claimed to have found a man who was willing to take care of her daughter, and she was in love with him, showing no interest in finding the real father. The priest at the notary doesn't know the name of the man or where he was from, determined to reveal the truth to Francesca. Julio meets her at a restaurant during their conversation. He receives a call and steps away briefly. Upon returning, he finds that Francesca has left distraught. She reflects on the situation and sheds tears before meeting Julio. Again, Francesca, with a mix of emotions, tells Julio that a father is someone who stays with their child and not someone who reappears after 20 years. She declares that Bolo, her adoptive father, is her true father, not Julio. The revelation brings a poignant and emotional conclusion to their complex relationship. Returning home, Julio discovers his wife packing and inquires if she is leaving. However, she reveals her intention to follow Aria to Madrid to be with her lover. The couple engages in a conversation about their marriage with his wife, insisting that she is still in love. Surprisingly, she suggests that Julio should follow Aria to Madrid to give her some space. Accompanied by Francisa, Julio travels to Madrid upon meeting Aria. She shares that she has realized her lover is not truly a man and has decided to keep the child and raise it on her. Olaria then runs off, leaving Julio and Francisa alone. They decide to go to a club together, and later back at home, they share intimate moments and enjoy each other's company until they eventually return to Rome. Once back in Rome, Julio and Francesa go to watch a movie together, marking a new phase in their relationship after the tumultuous events and revelations they experienced in Madrid as the film ends. Julio falls asleep, and when he wakes up, he realizes Francesca is nowhere to be found, frantically searching for her. He remains unaware that Francesca is watching him from a hidden spot,